Welcome to Worthy the Podcast, where we have conversations about what it means to feel worthy and what happens when we don't. I'm your host, Jessica Raimondi. In this episode of Worthy, I am sitting down with Rob Mack, positive psychology expert, author, and happiness coach. And I'll just say this was one of those conversations that stays with you. Rob shares his journey through deep, debilitating depression and the moment that changed everything, shifting the entire course of his life and leading him to study happiness. We talk about happiness and what it actually is and how we can begin to access it no matter where we are step by step. Before we begin the episode, just a quick note, we do touch on suicide in this episode. If you or someone you know is struggling, you can call the Lifeline at 988. And please remember, you are never alone. I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, guys, welcome back to Worthy. I'm sitting here with Rob Mack. Welcome to Worthy.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited you're here. We have a mutual friend.
We do.
And we also lived in the same building.
We also did that, yes.
We didn't even know each other, though. I was telling you, I think, off camera that I used to see you at the pool. You were always like just kind of focused on working on something. And I was like, I want to be him.
Oh my gosh, you don't, though. You don't, because you have no idea what I was doing on that computer.
God,
yeah. I was editing books for days, still editing those books.
And yes, you are an author. So much to talk about today. So you studied positive psychology.
That's right.
And you're a happiness coach. Let's start there. What is that?
Yeah. So the way I see it is happiness is the peaceful aliveness that we all have inside that sometimes we experience and we therefore call happiness. And sometimes we aren't aware of and we therefore call unhappiness. But it's not something that's new or acquired. It's just the peaceful aliveness that exists within all of us. So as a happiness coach, I help to guide people, direct people back to realizing or becoming aware of that peaceful aliveness that exists within all of us all the time.
I love that. I think that too. I think it is within all of us. How would you define happiness?
Peaceful aliveness.
Peaceful aliveness.
Yeah. So it's the alive feeling that you have all the time, but that you're not aware of all the time, right? And so if you just notice that you're alive, if you spend enough time feeling into that, you would quickly discover, like a dimmer switch on a halogen lamp, it just turns up brighter and brighter and brighter all the time. So instead of it being like something that just comes and goes, like depending on conditions,
right?
Circumstances.
That's what I would think. Like maybe it's fleeting.
Yeah. No. So the happiness that I talk about is unconditional, and it's unreasonable, meaning that it doesn't need a reason.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So, it's something that we all have access to, and some of us have spent time noticing that, and some of us just haven't.
So, what was it like becoming a coach, and like, what does this journey looked like for you? You know, how did we get here?
It was miserable.
Lots of unhappiness.
Oh my gosh, 100%. What drives anybody to be a happiness coach other than unhappiness?
Yeah, tell us.
So my first memories in life at about 6 or 7 years of age were ones of serious anxiety, self-loathing, unhappiness, stress, self-criticism. And I always thought I would grow out of it. You know, I wanted to be a professional basketball player. Yeah, so I was like, I'm going to one day be like Michael Jordan. And, if I can just become a professional basketball player, I'll have friends, I'll have money, maybe I'll even have a girlfriend. And that, of course, never happened. Okay. And, but I did accomplish some other things. I was salutatorian in my high school class. I did well in sports. But despite, doing well inside and outside the classroom, and even doing well in corporate America, I just continued to feel more and more depressed. And I get to a place where I was seriously suicidal and was experiencing suicidal ideation every single day, like dozens of times a day. I thought about killing myself more than I thought about anything or anybody else.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been such a lonely time.
Yeah. It was a little tough, I eventually got to a place where I decided to do something about it. So I did all this research, like how can you kill yourself? And I didn't want it to be a big deal. And I didn't have access to a lot of means or methods. So I decided I was going to slash my wrist. Probably can't see, but I still have suicide test marks there. And the strangest thing happened to me. Right when I dug the knife into my wrist, I felt this ineffable joy and indescribable peace. and like limitless love that I had never experienced before. And it blew me away. I was like, why?
Yeah.
How? So I decided to postpone the suicide for like 5-10 minutes then. It seems ridiculous now. But at the time it was a big deal.
It does not. I'm thank you so much for sharing that. I think people are really struggling, and they don't get to talk about it. They don't know how to talk about it. And so I think you just sharing that moment is so raw and real for people. Like, yeah, for sure. What do you think that was, that love and peace? Like, if you,
It was happiness.
yeah.
Yeah. At the time, all I could really say was that it was divine intervention. Um, I'm sorry and sad to say that it's taken me about 20 years to understand what really happened. Right. But what really happened was that my mind was finally quiet long enough for the innate, inherent, intrinsic, peaceful aliveness that I call happiness to like bubble to the surface of my conscious awareness. And when that happened, that's why I felt peace and love and joy.
Wow. So just like that quieting of the mind.
Yes.
That's, I think with so much suffering comes from just the chaotic thoughts and incessant chatter that is, from wherever it's coming from, whether it's, I think, we have that voice, whether it's our own voice or not, or whether it's programming, or whether it's from, society or peers or influential things, or it's just, how we were born.
No question. I mean, I would say that is the cause of all suffering, not pain. I think pain is different. I think, pain is sometimes inevitable. Suffering is optional. And without question, yeah, it's an obsessive, compulsive thinking, over analytical mind.
We call it chitta vritti in yoga. Yeah. So it's like the monkey mind. So take me back just a little bit. I just think, I really think it's so important to touch on depression for a moment. Obviously that was a turning point, a catalyst for you to, not feeling it. Can you tell me what that was like for you? Like, how did you experience your depression?
Great question. I think that in a lot of ways mine didn't look like textbook depression.
Okay.
I was very disciplined. Had two very loving parents, and my dad is a disciplinarian. He's in the military, so you had to salute him in the morning, and he was and so I was very focused, and I just seemed probably very intense. I was extraordinarily uncomfortably shy.
Okay.
So I didn't talk a whole lot, and I think for most people, it probably just looked like I was just a really awkward, uncomfortable kid, who was obsessed with basketball. So I channeled all of that into like playing basketball and sports. But on the inside, man, everything I did seemed to make me more and more miserable.
Yeah.
Even when I succeeded at something, it just felt like so disappointing. Like, oh boy, like if I got 100 on an exam, I was like, well, next time I'm probably going to fail it, or I'll probably get a 99, and then there'll always be one thing that's missing.
Did you think at the time, like, if I got that, then...
Definitely.
Then I'll be...
Ton of destination addiction. Are you kidding? Every single time.
Wait, what did you just say?
Destination addiction.
Oh my God, we have to get back to that. That is freaking awesome.
Yes.
Destination addiction. Yeah. Perfect word.
I'm like, as soon as I get this one thing...
Then I'll be...
Yeah. I'm going to score 30 points in this game, or, be first in this cross-country race. I'm going to get an A+ on this thing. I'm going to get to 11th grade, 12th grade.
Right.
But it's like...
once I graduate and become an adult, and I'll be fine,
Yeah, I'm going to get a girlfriend one day. I don't know how it's going to change. Yeah, exactly. That's the answer. That's 100%.
That's a whole other...
That's another episode. Yeah.
Totally. Absolutely. Okay, so you were feeling this way, and all going through high school and college?
Yes.
Okay.
And young adulthood. I mean, I was working in a consulting firm, and that's when I really was like, every day, this is, I hate my life. I hate myself. I hate my life. There's nothing I like about it. And what made it worse was I felt like I should be grateful. And I tried to be grateful because I got running water, I got food in my refrigerator.
You had that awareness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it made it worse. I felt guilty for not feeling grateful for these things that so many other people in all over the world didn't have.
Well said. I think a lot of us can relate to that too. Yeah. It's like, why? It's like not... I think we don't give ourselves permission enough to feel our own pain and honor that. It's so different. We're all so different, and we're all blessed in certain ways and not in certain ways. And it's like, and then there's that added guilt. I think it's so common, and I'm so glad you brought that up.
You haven't done any work on yourself at all, huh? Just off the top of your head.
Years, yeah, no, still work in progress.
That's all of us. That's all of us. That was really insightful. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, for sure. So you're feeling this way, you get to this point, you have this divine intervention.
Yeah.
And how do you come out of that?
So at that point, I was like, well, clearly there's something I don't understand here. I thought I was broken. I was convinced I was broken. And that's why I didn't really seek out therapy or, any, pharmaceuticals, anything like that. And I was also concerned about the perception around that. So I didn't seek any of that out. And then when I had this experience, I was like, oh, wait, if I can have that experience, even for a micro moment, for a few seconds, maybe I could do it again, or maybe it could happen again. So I started doing a different kind of research. Instead of looking up ways to kill myself, I looked up, it's like very productive. I started looking up, what is happiness? What is depression? What is suicidal ideation? And I discovered a whole world. People that had dedicated their entire lives to mastering this one thing. And I became obsessed.
Okay. And this one thing being
Happiness. Yeah.
Okay. So how did you, because I'm thinking about, our audience too, who struggles with, even that weight of depression, like everything can feel so challenging and like such a big deal and so much effort.
That's right.
Like, was that what it was?
Oh,
like
without
for you
question.
Okay.
Everything was effortful. I remember one time having a thought in my head, like I saw my mom and my dad working so hard at like even something simple as doing the laundry, cleaning up around the house. And I thought, I'm gonna have to do this the rest of my life. Like what they're doing, I'm gonna do one day. Like screw that. This is awful.
Yeah.
Awful. Like I couldn't get through a day. How was I gonna get through years and years of random errands and going to work?
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so so how did we make the first step? Like, what was there something that helped you a lot? Like, so you started doing the research, and that was feeding you your soul a little bit.
And at first, I was like, I'm gonna try to apply this stuff we're talking about, and that didn't go well at all.
Carrying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm not burdened enough. Let me put more, on my back.
Right, and it's because that's why I'm bringing this up, because I feel like wow, to take an action step in the midst of depression is such a feat.
It is, without question. What worked for me, and what I'm a true believer in, since I was convinced that my brain was broken and that I was broken, and that I couldn't be trusted with my own thoughts, I started listening and reading, but mostly listening obsessively to as many other teachers, authors on happiness as possible. And like I would even when I didn't want to do it, I would just turn it on and put it at such a low volume that I was like, maybe subliminally it's gonna get in my brain, like through osmosis maybe. Even when I was sleeping sometimes. And then I remember thinking, this isn't really working. I'm kind of annoyed that I'm even doing it. And then I remember it was several years later. I remember having a conversation with somebody and they said something. And then I remember something coming out of my mouth that I would have never said before. Something like inspiring and encouraging and positive. And I thought, those were not my words. This was one of these teachers.
So you literally just were able to like press a button.
Yes.
And I want to just kind of like sit on that for a second, especially those those of the audience that might be struggling. It's like that small little thing that you did, and you just you didn't even know if it was going to work. You just kind of just kept doing it.
Yes.
Did you do it like almost daily?
Yes, without question. Often as I could. I'm sure I drove people nuts with it. Right, I really did. You get in the car with Rob and it's another place.
Like,
don't kill myself. Don't kill myself. Audiobooks, like your CDs, whatever it was in the day.
I know. But I think that is it's like a baby step. I think so much of what can happen, and not only when we're depressed, but when we're struggling with anything, is like implementing the change, right? And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but like implementing these small, implementing the first step.
That's right.
And it can, even without the depression, it can feel like a weight is just dragging you. And so I'm so glad that I'm happy you had that experience, but I think that point is so helpful for people.
You absolutely nailed it. Like, I would, even as a kid, I was very ambitious. So of course I was thinking about, I want to go Division I basketball. But then really my mind was on professional, and I realized ambition can be great, but there's also incredible value in the tiniest, most minuscule baby step ever that doesn't feel like any work at all, that you never dread, that you maybe even kind of look forward to, hopefully look forward to a lot. And I think that's the difference between what I'd call discipline and blisscipline.
So good.
Yeah, I like.
We're going to be quoting you a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot here.
So good. Okay.
So it was just like, let me find one tiny little thing I can do consistently that doesn't feel like work at all, feels like play, or it's so easy that it's almost embarrassing to say you couldn't do it. Yeah. And I'm going to try and do it just to enjoy it. and I'll just see what happens. And most days, I'll be honest with you, I was convinced this is not working.
100%.
This is silly.
Yeah.
But it's so little effort that what's the big deal? Keep doing it. And then, maybe months went by at first. And then one day I remember waking up and thinking, I didn't think about killing myself at all yesterday.
Wow.
And then, of course, I went back to thinking about it for a few weeks or whatever. And then again, it would happen. There would be 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row. And I was like, this is interesting. Something's clicking here somewhere. Maybe I just better keep this up.
Oh, I think that is so powerful. I really do. And also the reminder that nothing's going to happen overnight, but there's you were laying this foundation
That's right.
for your brain to maybe catch a different vibe.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way to put it.
Right?
Yes, that's a good way to think about it.
switch up.
Yeah, think about it like catching a vibe. That's better, actually. You're right. It feels like less burdensome. Yeah, 100%. That's right. That's what it is.
I mean, it's so true. It's like the baby step. So, okay, so then you hear this thing coming out of your mouth, whatever you said years later.
Yes.
And then where do we go from there?
And then, so that was sort of where and then I realized, boy, I'm going to continue listening and reading and consuming as much positive content as I can. Yeah. And I'm going to apply as much of it as I can. And I'm going to track it a little. I wasn't obsessively tracking, but just,
I think it's important.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I noticed that certain things really resonated with me and certain other things didn't. Mm-hmm. So the one thing I realized was, why torture myself to happiness? Right? Because
counterintuitive.
Yeah, it's so ridiculous. I remember thinking I'm doing all these unhappy things in order to be happy. I don't want, no, that's backwards.
So backwards.
Right? Yeah. So I was like, if I like the activity and it makes me feel better and it doesn't feel like a heavy lift, I'm going to keep it up. And if it feels burdensome or annoying, I'm just going to let it go. And that helped a lot because then it wasn't just practicing an activity to get a result. I was practicing the activity to enjoy the process. And that was happiness itself already.
That reminds me of this quote that, do you know who Gabby Bernstein is?
Yes,
She's
of course.
So I went to her first Spirit Junkie Master class in New York, which was
wow.
Her books have changed my life. But and it just reminded me of something about success. She says, measure your success by how much fun you're having. And I think we don't allow ourselves, like you said, it seems so minuscule. It's almost embarrassing to say, but the joy, the initiating those feelings, right, is probably what started to happen when you started to be like, oh, I'm actually happy in this moment, or actually this feels good.
It's so poignant,
right? And that's how and that's where change was created, I think, in the mastering the feelings.
You just nailed that. There's so many things in what you just said. One is redefining success. Big deal for me. I was like, okay, if
yes,
if quote unquote being successful in the classroom, in the sports arena, and with friends or in a corporate environment has led me to depression and suicide, or at least suicidal ideation, maybe I should look at this thing differently. And I remember thinking it's not success without fulfillment is failure, right?
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to redefine success as freaking happiness. I'm going to just try to be happy. If that means I'm broke, I'm living on the beach, and I have nothing, then also be it. And that kind of I think single-minded focus helped me a lot. Because for me, it was literally life and death. And it was also no. The only thing I care about is happiness. I care about happiness even more than other people, anybody else.
I love that.
Very helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how did we get into the coaching aspect? So did you go back to school? Yeah, or how? And because again, I want to remind people this was a journey, right? This is not great, I made that decision. Yeah. Now this is happening.
Yeah, no, it was like recreating the wheel. It really was. It really was. I mean,
gotta love it when we try to do that.
Yeah. So fascinating.
Yeah.
So when I was at working for a consulting firm, hated the work, but the people were great. And eventually left that, and I had moved to Miami. Because what I discovered in the beginning was, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know how to be happy, but I do feel like being in sunshine would be really great.
Which is a great first step.
First step.
Simple.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I remember really struggling with that because I wanted to know more about how to be happy and how to, discover my life purpose. And something just kept hitting me over the head with if you don't act on the one piece of information you have, even if you feel like it's irrelevant, then why should you get more? Why should you get more downloads? Wow. So I finally moved to Miami. I had the consulting job for a little while, and then I left there and I started looking for another corporate job, couldn't find one, and then I stumbled into modeling. And I did that for 10 years. And what was interesting is that when I was doing that, I was probably much more interested in having conversations in the trailers about happiness than I did actually shooting anything.
That's so cool
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
Did you have fun doing
So much
it?
fun.
Yeah,
So much fun.
that
Yeah.
seems like you probably were in a better place for it
Oh,
too and could enjoy it more rather
100%.
than it had happened earlier.
Oh my gosh, you have to. If it happened earlier, I was definitely not going to enjoy it. I was going to
Yeah.
make everybody around me miserable too.
Right. I
Yeah.
love that you
Yeah.
were the guy talking to the trailers. That was so
Oh my God, 100%.
so would have been me as
Yeah.
well.
We would have been great friends then.
Oh,
too.
absolutely. I know we probably missed each other in LA too. We were trying to figure it out. So when did you start to really start to study this positive thinking, positive
Yeah.
psychology?
So I didn't realize the whole time I was studying it, but it hadn't been
Right.
fully
Yeah.
formed into like a discipline. So Martin Seligman, who I'd studied in undergrad, who really had focused on learned helplessness and depression and what was wrong with people, founded this entire new field of positive psychology.
Love
I
it.
found the program at University of Pennsylvania. It's a master's in applied positive psychology. I thought about applying, and then I finally was like, this is exactly up your alley, Rob. So I applied, did the program, loved it, and then went over my private practice and started, inviting people in to get a little support.
That's so incredible. What a cool subject,
Yes.
or a study. I went and got my master's in spiritual psychology actually at
that was
University
the
of
other one I
Santa
considered.
Monica.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it
great
was
program.
A lot of self work.
Yeah.
And learning to facilitate others. But that when I was reading, your credentials, I was like, what's that MAPP or whatever it is? That's very, very cool. So did you go right into you went right into helping, working with other people?
Yeah, so that was a challenge in of itself.
Was that a goal? Did you want to share what you were doing,
Not
or did
really.
you just want to heal? Right.
I just wanted to
yeah,
heal.
Right.
I wanted to heal, but then what happened one day was I was trying to figure out my life purpose and what I want to do with my how I'm going to make money. And at the
Yes.
same time, I had people saying to me, "Oh, Rob, you seem different, very different. You seem just so much more lighter and more joyful." And then I had a friend say to me something like, "Well, Rob, if you could do anything and get paid to do it, what would you do for fun
Yes.
and get paid?" And I was like, "Well, I'd love to talk to people about happiness." Yeah, right.
So awesome.
Yeah. So then I think I created probably a brochure or something for something really ghetto.
old
Yeah, exactly. It was horrible. It was really bad.
We were just talking about how we struggle with social media. A good old brochure.
Yeah, exactly.
I can do that.
Yeah, I'll get behind the brochure, but social media I won't touch. It's like, wow, Rob, still stuck in the 90s. But yeah, so did that, and I went around to all the hotels in Miami and tried to pass them around. Didn't really get me very far. And then eventually I became the resident life coach at Miami Life Center. It was very helpful. Keno McGregor is the honorary founder there. And that was great because then I started doing talks.
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So I'm in the yoga world too. So I remember studying. I mean, God, she was one of the first yogis on Instagram as well. So that's so cool that you were there. And that was the one. That's where Hanu is.
That's right.
Now that's where I taught for.
Oh,
years.
wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. How do we
Yeah,
we
I
just
know.
miss each other so many
Literally. So that's great. So you were there working with doing kind of classes.
Yep. Yeah, I would see clients and then I would do classes, workshops, talks there.
Amazing. That's so cool. Okay, so let's talk about what you studied a little bit and the happiness and positive things. So what does this positive thinking, this happiness mindset do for the brain?
Yeah, so it rewires the brain, right? So I would, there's sort of two ways to talk about this. One is from a scientific perspective.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The brain, right? So the brain, the brain is built for survival, not necessarily happiness, right? That doesn't mean it's built for unhappiness.
So important.
But yeah, it's designed to keep you alive. And that software is extraordinarily helpful, but it's a little outdated at
It's
times.
very outdated.
Yeah.
It doesn't know it's outdated.
That's right. It doesn't know it's outdated, which makes it worse. Which makes it worse.
Totally.
So, we're up against that challenge a little. The brain is a phenomenal problem-solving instrument, but it's just as effective a troublemaker and problem creator as it is as a problem solver.
It makes me sad because I don't think it means to.
Right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't know what it's
No,
doing.
it
Yeah. It doesn't know what it's doing always.
It doesn't.
No, which is in a way also beautiful because I'm a big believer that true peace and love and happiness is ineffable. It's thoughtless and it's wordless, and that's why babies and small children and small animals are so much closer. All of nature is blissful except for human beings. When you think about it, right? And why is that? Because all of nature is deeply present and not, obsessed with the future, obsessed with the past. They're not ruminating. They're not regretting. They're not worrying. And in that presence, which is thoughtless and wordless, flow state is accessed. And that's just really another way to talk about joy.
Yeah, and the nature doesn't know they should be something else.
Right.
I think they should be
That's
something
right.
else.
That's right. Rose doesn't compete with a daffodil. Not competing. The deer's not competing with the lion. In order to be better in some ways. So yeah, that's exactly right. I think at the end of the day, the brain is a fantastic tool, but you want it to be your servant, not your master.
Totally. I say that a lot. That's a beautiful quote too. I've heard about the ego, which obviously operates in that capacity as well. Do you think that, so given that, like, do you think that people resist happiness, or do you think it's just they forget?
So, it's funny. I was thinking about this the other day, and I think that I think both are true. I'd say that some people are just happy being unhappy.
Why?
Why
do you think?
One, I think because they don't know how to be happy. They don't know really what happiness is, where to find it.
Sure.
And I think that a lot of the things they do it's like a consolation prize in lieu of not having happiness. So it's like, if you can complain a lot and you can worry a lot, you often get sympathy. Right? And you get attention. You're
getting something.
Yeah, you're going to get rewarded for it. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes when you can't access happiness, or it seems like it's too tall, a task, or it feels like it's unreachable, or maybe it doesn't exist, sympathy sure does feel good.
Sure does.
Yeah. So I think that's one. Also, the brain is built with all these biases, like we said.
Yes, I wanted to talk about negative biases.
Yeah,
Yes.
negativity bias, confirmation bias. There are dozens of biases. One of the most important ones is negativity bias.
Okay.
Which means that the problem tends to get more of your focus than solutions, right? Because as soon as you solve a problem, the point is you're solving problems in order to stay alive. That's what the brain tells you.
Yes, and I am like a super warrior.
Are you?
Yeah. I'm like
a warrior or warrior?
Warrior.
Yes.
I'm also a warrior.
Yes.
But I worry a lot. That was like passed down to me. My mom did a lot, and I also future trip.
Yeah.
So I'm more like when I got this, or let me, catastrophizing, things like that. But it makes me feel. Yeah, and it makes me feel like I'm in control of something.
Well, that's it right there. Well, you nailed that right there. I think that's the other piece, is that happiness is it's about turning that locus of control from an external focus to an internal one. So that's the way I talk about it with people who love control. At the end of the day, I'd argue that it's probably not even that. It's probably surrendering all control to some extent, because you can try to control your emotions, which is probably healthier than not. But then you quickly discover that even that is problematic. You don't need to control your emotions in the way that people talk about.
It's so ancient. Like I feel it inside of me.
Yeah.
It's like so old. It's just so old.
Yes.
Like it has nothing to do with actually what the thing is I'm worried about. It's just like this programming, this fight or flight, this. I know I grew up in a house of the mom that way. So, and it was like, everything was like, I was always on eggshells and whatnot, amongst other things, which luckily we have, we've healed together and talked about all of this, but yeah, I can still feel it in my nervous system. So it's like problem solving, predicting.
You know what's fascinating about, I love you saying that, because there's two things there. One is, I remember having an experience, and I came to the insight that you just shared so brilliantly, which is, I remember one day feeling like I didn't have anything to worry about. And that worried me more than anything. That's when I was like, I'm nuts. I got problems, bro. Like, wait, what?
That's like in relationships too, when things are calm.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is boring. Thumbs up.
This is worse than having the other things to worry about. I was like, wow, I have really... And then that's when I discovered that worry is never really about the content. It's about the container. It's the structure of the brain. It's thinking itself.
The worry is what?
It's not about the content. It's about the container. And it's not. It's more about the structure of the brain. It's always seems like what you think is the problem is never the problem, really.
Yeah.
I've got this health problem. It's got the finance problem. I got this relationship problem. Yes, but I would argue that if you're living at a level above subsistence, you can pay for basic necessities.
Yes.
And things. Right. Your financial worries are not financial. They are psychological and emotional and spiritual to a great extent.
Oh, yes.
And I think a lot of people have a hard problem with that. I mean, the truth is that we're all born with a terminal disease. It's called life. Right?
Oh, yes.
So what are you going to do? Worry yourself to the end of it?
It's a terminal disease. That's so true, man. I know. And it's like, it is what we make of it. It's really interesting. And also like it maddens me because it's like so simple, and if we all just could get on board like with like, you know, loving ourselves and healing our shit, not bringing our, you know, past into the present and not playing victim to, you know, our circumstances. I'm a big believer that, you know, it may not have been our fault what happened to us, but it is our responsibility what we choose to do with that now. And especially going into relation with others, like, right? It's like you can't have that arsenal behind you.
Gosh, that's so powerful.
Yeah.
Abraham, I was a big Abraham Hicks fan.
Oh.
Were you? Obsessed. Esther Hicks. Are you kidding? Obsessed with Esther Hicks. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, Abraham was so. Go check it out. Google it because that's a whole other podcast.
Oh my God,
Abraham
my
Hicks.
jam.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, this is Abraham Hicks saved me.
Yes.
And you know, it's interesting. They would say often, they still probably do. You are completely justified in feeling anything that you're feeling and thinking anything you're thinking. And the only problem is that you're only screwing up your own life. So you could be justified in your anger, your jealousy.
True.
Yeah. You just mess up. You can scream at the world. The world does not care. You know, and so just being justified in what you think and feel can be validating, but to continue feeling what you're feeling and not being more intentional around it is only going to mess up your present life and your future life.
I totally agree with that. Brilliant. You know, I wish more of us would take the responsibility or even just the interest and curiosity around the things that we feel and are going through, and like what you did. I mean, I'm being in such a low place, but getting, you obviously you had some sort of relief in the moment, but getting curious about what was going on. I think we are not curious enough about our own patterns and our systems, and like I've been doing work on myself. I've been doing the spiritual work for, gosh, I don't even know, 15 years probably now, and I am just now starting to realize why I do the things I do, you know, in a new way.
Yep. That's right. But you nailed it. The curiosity. That was a gift that I had that I wasn't aware of, and I just wasn't channeling in the right direction. But you're right. When this whole experience happened with me, I became very curious. Why am I this way? Why am I not that way? Where's that come from? And why, you know, am I behaving this way? And what can I do about it? That curiosity was extraordinarily helpful. It's also there's humility in that. Humility in that. Well, I worked in the spiritual addiction community for a while out in LA, and there was a great quote, I'm sure you've heard it, that we would repeat often in our little therapy sessions, and it was like, your best thinking got you here.
Got you here.
Right?
Yeah.
If your best thinking got you depressed,
I'm a
addicted.
big member of the spiritual
There you go.
programs.
Yeah, you know of all.
Yeah, no, I love some of, I mean, the spiritual aspect, and I think just touching on this for a second, because you said, you know, emotional, psychological, spiritual, we go through a lot of pain, and spirituality can be anything. You know, for me, it's I just want to kind of clarify that for the audience. It's like, I look at it as like really attuning to the higher version of myself, right? Yeah. And so it's not necessarily about God, and it's not necessarily about religion, but it's like, I believe there's a force and an energy within me, and like, it wants me to be happy. It wants me to succeed.
Yes.
Like, and so I think the reminder that like this happiness stuff that we're talking about isn't out there.
You know, I love that you put it that way. And that's something I struggle with a lot, which also contributed to my depression and suicidal ideation, was like religion and spirituality, at least my understanding of it. It was really problematic.
Totally.
Really problematic.
It's for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So you clarifying it that way is extraordinarily helpful. I think of it like you, which is like, yeah, we have a body, but we're not our body. We have a brain, but we're not our brain. We have a mind, but we're not our mind. There was something clearly non-physical about us. You know, like sometimes you can just feel someone's energy, close your eyes, you still feel their energy. That, whatever that is, sometimes people call it spirit. You can call it blue diamonds. Doesn't matter what you call it.
Doesn't matter. Does not matter.
The point is, there's something beyond what you see that hangs the earth on nothing, spins it, rotates it, revolves it around the super hot star called the sun, just at the right distance to not burn us up or freeze us.
I know. That alone, and when I think about that, always like,
right? Yeah, like we're hanging.
Like just a bit closer.
Yes.
We would be in a lot.
Yes, we're just hanging in midair. All on this spinning rock.
Fucking wild.
That's wild.
It's wild.
Yeah, so if you think you're under control, just consider that.
I always said that I would love to take a little trip to space just to turn around and get the perspective of Earth, you know, and be like, ooh. okay.
Yeah. So I used to love flying in airplanes sometimes, just looking down and you see,
It's
right, all these people and you're like, they each have a soap opera,
me
but
too.
none of it
They're in the
really.
little square.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about the airplane after I heard the metaphor is flying above the clouds, right? So it's like like we're talking about all this stuff. The sun is like happiness, right? It's still there. It's there. You just got some clouds, but you can fly up over them if you want. And then I love that because I mean, especially I've traveled so much lately, and there's just storms everywhere, and I'm like, oh,
Yes.
I'm a bad flyer. But then you get up, and I get into that, right above the clouds, and you're looking at the sun, and you're just like, it's so peaceful.
See, that's a great real life example and a great analogy, a metaphor, because that's exactly the way I think about it too. Like the invincible summer within, or the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. That's like the eternal happiness of the quiet mind, right? The sun is always
That's really
there.
what that means.
Yes.
The title. Now that I'm getting it.
Right?
Unfortunately,
Oh, it took me a while for it to click.
Yeah, but I
was like,
love that movie.
Yeah, love that great movie.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, is that the sun is always there shining. Today it's raining here in Miami and a little cloudy, but the sun's still there, shining as brightly as ever.
Right
But
as
there's some
ever.
clouds, aka thoughts, emotions, experiences that are coloring our experience or veiling our experience
Absolutely.
of the sun, but it's always there.
Oh, I love that. What are there some other misconceptions about happiness?
That it's somewhere else other than
Yeah.
here, and it's some other time other than now.
Oof. And we were talking even like I think on the phone that one time about like again I love this. If I get this, then I'll be happy. And we talk about others. I love that. Thinking that it's another time than now. I think so many of us struggle with, because what if we could just be happy right now? What if?
And there's an argument that there is no other happiness that exists except the happiness that exists here and now, right?
100%.
Oh, I mean, even when the future comes, it comes as another present moment. So,
It's
right?
literally the same.
Yeah, literally. And it's not even another present moment. It's the same present moment.
It's the same present moment. And I think I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what people are struggling with is the wanting to feel happy,
Yeah.
right? And that's what we talked about on the phone. It was like wanting to feel that sense of accomplishment of being in the NBA, wanting to feel what it's like to have the $1 million in the bank account, wanting to feel what it's like to buy your first home.
That's right.
It's not the thing.
You just nailed it. Like, I remember in the beginning of my journey, I thought maybe it's a financial status or state, lifestyle status, and you graduate beyond these things because you realize there are some seriously rich, powerful people that are more miserable than you can possibly imagine. That's why they kill themselves. So many celebrities, right? So you graduate beyond that, but then you think, well, maybe it's a relationship status. And then you graduate beyond that because you see, my God, you could be married to the most beautiful, brilliant person, and it could be hell for you. And then you get to a place where it's like, it's a state of mind. You're closer now. You're closer, right? But sometimes you can have the same thought that you had yesterday, and still you feel different. You have anxiety about it today. Yesterday, you felt great about it. And then you get to a point where you think maybe it's a state of mood. And that's where most of us get stuck.
Yeah.
And I'd argue it's not a state of mood. It's not a state of mind. It's a state of no mind. And it's a stateless state. So I know that sounds a little confusing, but the idea essentially is that even underneath your most unhappy or upsetting moods or feelings is what I'm calling unconditional happiness or peace. It's always there. Just like that sun that's shining, it's always there. So that for people is a little hard because what they think is, and I get it because I did too, sometimes we equate happiness with pleasure. Happiness is pleasurable, but it doesn't equate to pleasure.
Interesting.
Right?
We totally
Yeah.
do.
It's exciting. It can be exciting, but it's not equivalent to excitement.
That's fleeting.
That's right. That's right. And the other thing that we do is we project what we feel onto other people, places, and things.
No.
No, never do that. Never. No. Can't be the relationship I was in. That's no. Or the money I did or did not have. Yeah.
That's incredible. Well, yeah, I think and I think that's why, because on the other side of pleasure is that drop, is that pain, right? And that can be, I think that's the part that's fleeting for sure. And
what's fleeting all the way is your awareness of the innate happiness that always exists there. So it's not that we should avoid experiences or relationships. No. It's just that we want pleasure. Yeah. No, it's just that you want to be aware that underneath all of that is the peaceful aliveness that we call happiness that is accessible anytime you want, at will, on demand,
No matter
choice.
like what comes or
That's
goes.
right. That's
Yeah, or who comes or goes.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's work towards that.
Yes, yes.
But speaking of, so okay, so that's the kind of goal, is to have that awareness, right, of our birthright of happiness, so to speak. How do we get there? Like, what would you say, like, what's your prescription that you usually work with? You're working with clients, like, well, how do you start, again, going back to even those baby steps, I would assume?
Totally. So I think of it in terms of like 4 steps or stages, and there are all kinds of practices associated with each one, but I'll just sort of briefly outline it.
Please.
So the first sort of step or stage is like happy activities.
Okay.
Right. And this is what most of us think about when we think about happiness. Oh my God, I'm going on vacation to Bali or whatever. Okay. Amazing. So what you want to do is just identify your happiness islands. These are activities that you enjoy for their own sake, not for what they get you.
Okay.
Okay. And you enjoy them with very little time, energy, or effort. Okay. So you write those down.
Sounds great.
Yes.
That's easy.
Easy, right? You want to schedule more of those into your life. Pure and simple. Sometimes people don't know what those things are. But I didn't. I'm like, what does really make me happy? I don't know.
Yeah.
So identify your happiness deserts instead. Those are activities that you loathe, that you hate. And you only do them because they get you something else, or you hope they get you something else. You want to try to schedule as many of those things out of your life as possible. Okay. There's 7 ways to do it. I'll just say it briefly. Reduce, eliminate, outsource, delegate, automate, regulate, or innovate. The idea is, how can I get this thing off my plate without destroying my life?
Yeah.
So that's the first step.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right. I love it.
Okay. At some point, you graduate beyond that because you realize that you can be doing the same thing you thought brought you happiness yesterday, but it doesn't bring you happiness today. So then you realize, oh, wait, well, maybe it's more about the people, right? And that's true. Positive psychology says that, relationships matter a great deal. Identify the people who are energy vampires, try to spend as little to no time with them as possible. Identify the people that are uplifters and encouragers. Spend as much time with those people as possible. That's like step 2. Very simple, okay? Then you graduate beyond that because you realize sometimes the same person who brought you happiness, yesterday doesn't bring you anything but misery today. So then you realize, oh wait, happiness is really a state of mind. So then you practice what I call happy thoughts, happy stories. That's about practicing telling truthful, better feeling stories about everything and everyone, starting with yourself, just to feel better. So instead of saying, for instance, it's raining, the weather sucks, you either stick to the facts and just say it's raining, full stop, no color commentary, or you say, the rain reminds me of how much I appreciate the sunshine. And while I might not really be looking forward to the rain today, I'm looking forward to the sunshine tomorrow. It's just
like a reframe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all. So you do this for a while and you get good at it and you rewire your brain neuroplastically for it. But then you discover that even underneath that, sometimes still anxiety.
Sure.
Right. And sometimes you feel like you don't have the motivation to tell truthful, better feeling stories. So then you graduate to what I'd call it's the final sort of honest step, which is happy no thoughts.
Happy no thoughts.
Right.
Okay.
That's just like returning to a childlike state where you can look and not evaluate. You can listen and not interpret. You can do one thing at a time, remembering that thinking counts as one thing. So if you're showering, you just shower, you don't think. If you eat, you just eat, you don't think. And if you think, you just think and you don't do anything else.
Oh, so you're separating the action.
That's right. That's right. So you're unitasking. So those are what I call the 4 primary stages or steps. Lots of practices for each of those that you can always put into play in your life. But you don't need to put many into play, just one at a time.
Yeah. And are these in your book?
They are. I don't think I organized it that way, but yes.
That's really cool. So, I think that is just going to be so helpful for people to digest, as maybe making that first step or just whatever. So, but if people did want to work with you, are you working with clients? Are you doing virtuals? Are you doing in-persons? Are you doing anything else?
I am. I do have a private practice.
Okay.
So I work with individuals. I have a bit of a waiting list, maybe a 6-month waiting list. That being said, I appreciate it. That's something I never imagined I'd have in my life, quite frankly. That, by the way, I always make sure that I make room for people who are genuinely dedicated to being happier. If I can't help people in that way, I will always find some other way to support them and help them.
That's cool.
So yes, I'm always open and available to that. And then, I do talks and I write books and sometimes I do TV.
So you have 2 books that could be very helpful for people. Can you tell us about both of them?
Yeah, I owe you a Venmo. We take cash
Yeah.
back.
Got it.
My publicist on top of everything else. I appreciate you. Yeah, happiness.
It's going to be all on the notes.
That's right.
And the podcast. So, yeah.
Happiness from the inside out. Love from the inside out. Available Barnes & Noble, Amazon, everywhere. Great books are
Okay,
sold.
really cool. Yeah, definitely get on that. Okay, I have a few last questions
Yes.
for you. So tell me, it's been, so since your suicide attempt and since that moment of like clarity and calm, how long has it been?
20-some years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So how is Rob now? How is life now? Like if you are here and then look back and...
I mean, I genuinely, look, I suck at most things. Okay. I have countless, I do. I suck at most things.
Something tells me that's not true.
I appreciate that. I'm going to try to receive that. But I've only really focused on one thing in my life, which is this. So I can genuinely say I've never been happier,
Gotcha.
you know, or more at peace. And the primary reason is because, of course, I've just dedicated myself to this. And I learned the ultimate secret for me, which is just quieting my mind. You know, I used to think it laughable and almost,
Yeah.
you know, to think that you can turn it from, what do you mean?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I just, anybody talked about that, I'd turn it off immediately. It's nonsense. And then one day I tried everything else and I was still feeling like anxious inside, this and that. And as soon as I started practicing it, I practiced what's called a micro meditation.
Okay.
It's just like a one breath vacation from life.
Oh.
And from your own mind.
Explain. We don't know what the micro meditation is.
Yeah. So that's like, ideally you and I have 100 years left in these beautiful human flesh costumes, kind of thing. But also, God forbid, maybe a week or a day or an hour. Don't know. You never know. So you try to enjoy a breath as deeply as humanly possible, like it's your last breath. And you can do that best by letting all your thoughts go and just milking that breath for as much joy as you can get out of it.
Wow.
Right. So you're really just trying to be the ultimate hedonist.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And you want to do it as often as you can throughout the day.
And that's really tangible too. It's
Very
like
tangible.
Very accessible.
That will literally transform your life, transform my life more than anything else I've ever done.
And it also brings like such appreciation.
Yes, that's right.
I just noticed that.
That's right. Oh, it's a great way to talk about it, actually.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's like, imagine if it was your last breath.
That's right.
Really, I'm going to use that one.
That's a great way to talk about it because
Okay.
happiness and love, I think, are synonyms ultimately.
Of course.
Yeah.
And like sustaining and
That's
just
right.
like, and ever present in a way.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, they're all synonyms. So yeah, when you're happy and you're alone, you call it happiness. When you're happy and you happen to be in the presence of somebody else, it feels like love.
Yeah, I love that. That's so great. Okay, so you're doing great. What I asked, this is something I asked all my guests. So if you could define self-worth, what would your definition be?
To me, the term self and worth is redundant. The self,
Okay.
the self is love.
Okay.
If you dive deep enough into yourself, you discover only love, only happiness, and everything. That's all it's there. There's nothing else there. I'm quite convinced of that. So how would I define it? I probably wouldn't define it. I would encourage you to experience it for yourself, and you can best experience it probably by not thinking about it as much. I mean, spend some time thinking about it for sure, but you can show us better than you can tell us, and experience is the only explanation. But I would say, self-worth is the peace, love, and happiness that you have in infinite fashion inside you all the time, that you can access or become aware of anytime you want. And the more you practice it, the more you discover this is true.
Love that. It's a great one. And finally, what do you think your superpower is?
Yeah, great questions. You might have done this before, huh? My greatest superpower, probably unconditional regard. Like unconditional. Since I was a kid, I'm not very good at judging. Really, I love that.
No.
Right?
No,
Yeah.
I can't do it.
No, yeah.
Really?
It doesn't really stick for me. And I think in some ways it probably got me into trouble because I didn't understand the difference between judgment and discernment. You still have discernment, Rob.
100%.
Like,
It's got another side to it for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to give them all your credit cards and money, bro. Like, you can not judge and also
To give them 5 years of my life.
exactly. Yeah, keep the car keys in your pocket, bro. You don't have to give them all your stuff just because you're trying not to judge. So yeah, So
Okay, I think it's a
What's
super-
yours?
compassion.
Oh,
in that
I see
way.
that deeply.
Yeah.
But it's the same.
Yes,
Yeah, it's
that's right.
because I am over compassionate with everybody else and not enough with myself.
Oh, that resonates. Isn't it interesting how that works?
Mm-hmm.
And you also said it beautifully. I think non-judgment is compassion or love already. I think we often think about love as something that you do, and I think it's something that we are.
I just see that so clearly in people. Like I see our essence and our being, and I feel like I've been here a million times before. So it's like I know why I feel like I know why everybody does everything they do. So how can I judge?
Oh, that's powerful.
It's like their intention is not necessarily match their actions, but that's where discernment comes in.
That's right.
Right?
Well, this is, I'll just be brief about this.
Please,
One of my pet little
yeah.
peeves, which is like, people say, they would, if they wanted to, they would.
With these little slogans,
Yes.
okay, make me mental.
Yes, crazy.
I'm like, that's not true.
No.
If they loved you, they wouldn't do that.
What do you mean? Are you no? Absolutely not. Sometimes precisely because they love you. Yes. Yes.
I'm like, how?
Yeah.
That's why I
go
have to
viral.
stay away from like the Instagram psychology a bit because it gets you. It's like you're like, yeah,
Oh
I feel
my!
empowered.
You nailed that. Oh my gosh! You
Right.
just. Oh, this is why you and I are lifelong friends.
Lifelong friends.
Lifelong connected.
You
Because
will be on this podcast by, I assume, many other times.
oh my gosh!
So much to talk about, but absolutely true. And I just want to acknowledge you. Honestly, thank you for being here, for, being brave to tell the story and making your pain your purpose. I feel like I respect that. I wish more of us did that and realized that that's all we need to do. Right?
I appreciate that. You have no idea. First of all, I received that. I'm working on receiving it.
Good. I know. It's a big one.
Yeah, and I want to reflect that back to you. I mean, since the first conversation we had, all I from you is genuine compassion and genuine love, and you consistently show up like this, on camera, on mic, and off camera, off mic. This is like who you genuinely are. Your journey, your story, and the way that you show up is incredibly inspiring to me. And I love what you do, and I'm so glad that you're doing it. I wish I would have discovered it earlier in my life. That I probably wouldn't be on the podcast.
Well, same.
Yeah.
But you are. We're doing kind of work hand
That's
in
right.
hand, and I'm so glad we're in each other's lives, and that my audience got to meet you too, and I can't wait for the next one.
Me too. Looking forward to it. You know where to find me.
Yes, and we will put all of the information for Rob in the show notes. I want to thank you guys for watching, for tuning in. As always, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Because it's so good.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Worthy the Podcast. Our goal is to build a community, and we do that through people like you who listen, subscribe, and most importantly, share with someone you care about. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, as well as our YouTube channel. And if this episode resonated with you, leave a review. We want to hear from you. Thanks for being here, and remember, you've always been enough. Period. This podcast is meant to inspire and educate, but I am not a licensed therapist or medical professional. Everything shared here is based on personal experience and perspective, so take what resonates and leave the rest.